And boys and girls and children of all ages, welcome to the Sapphire Nation podcast number 3. I am your host, Sapphire Ed, and joining me is the one, the only Pixel Twitch.
Hello, guys. How you doing? You okay?
Welcome. Now, many of them might know you because you do the YouTube videos for Sapphire.
Yep, that's correct.
And it's the gameplay videos. You've done some how-to videos.
Yep, I've done a bit of everything, really.
So I thought it'd be really cool to bring you on to talk about content creation from a gamer's perspective. Now, remember, guys, we're not going to be pushing this to the high end. Okay, the objective here is not to talk to people that want to create professional Twitch streams or get paid lots of money to be able to create content on YouTube. I wanted to do something for the every gamer. And I know Pixel has a similar look on some of the stuff that I do, so I thought this would be kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely sounds interesting.
I guess before we start this, though, how did you get started doing the content streaming?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. It actually started off a long time ago, and it was almost completely by accident. I've always had a big interest in games in general and stuff like that, but there was one time that I was going to a LAN event called the I-Series in the UK, and I just ended up on a train with a guy who ended up being Total Biscuit, and I spoke to him a little bit, and I had no idea who he was. I didn't know who Total Biscuit was at the time.
I'm just riding along, and I happen to be sitting next to Total Biscuit. That's funny.
I didn't know who he was, though. I'd never even heard of him at the time. And we were going to I-Series, and I had a bad leg, so I was like, I'm going to get a taxi. You jumping on? He's like, yeah. So we go to the event, and it was only once we got there that I realized that he was actually casting the StarCraft stuff, which was there. And I didn't realize that after speaking to this guy, he was just like such a normal, everyday guy. And I didn't realize that he had this kind of popularity and stuff like that. So I just took a bit of interest in what he was doing. I had some other friends that was also dabbling in content creation at the time. And I just decided to give it a go. And it was scary, but yeah, there was not really a big catalyst. It was kind of wanting to do something for a long time and then seeing somebody who was successful and then not seeing them as, godlike. Like it's achievable. And I think it was when I realized that actually doing something that you enjoy and actually being able to make a living from it was an achievable thing. So that's what kind of kickstarted my content creation.
That's awesome. I'd love to sit down with you sometime just to talk about Total Biscuit because I absolutely loved his videos. I didn't agree with him all the time, but I loved his content.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to me because you just made the comment. He's just another guy. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know. That's one of the cool things I've discovered in this industry. When you get in with the real gamers in this industry, and sadly, there aren't many that are. But when you get in with those real gamers and you sit down with them, you suddenly discover that, yeah, they've got this amazing talent, but they're just like me and you.
Yeah, exactly. It was a shock. He's always a bit eccentric, as Total Biscuit always was.
Well, that makes him fun.
Exactly. But I mean, I didn't know who he was. Basically, he come down from Newcastle at the time, with somebody that I was working with Team Dignitors at the time, and he was speaking to one of our StarCraft players, obviously, so they knew each other. But I knew the StarCraft player, so I'd actually gone to sit down with the StarCraft player who was also with TB. So that's how that came about.
Now, how long ago was this?
Oh, wow. This must have been a long time ago now. This must have been 2012, 2013. This is like when TB was first getting his break in StarCraft. StarCraft 2 had just been released.
Okay, because it's funny you're mentioning TB. My introduction to esports was in Control.
All right, okay.
Jeff and I met and we talked and we did a couple of interviews. I even had Anna on, his wife, talking about women in gaming for a while. And that was just so cool because Jeff, I don't know if you've ever met or got to talk to Jeff.
I have, yes.
Jeff isn't your typical, what you'd think of as an esports gamer.
No.
He's a bodybuilder. He's a guy that wants to work out in the gym. I mean, he's literally a brick house.
Yeah.
But that's so cool. It's interesting to hear this because it sounds like even more than our earlier conversations, a lot of our paths have intersected through the industry over the years.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how small the gaming industry is. Especially, I'm definitely not at the top end. I don't know the elites. You know what I mean? I'm not in that upper echelon circle. But as soon as you start getting to like quite high up in the industry, as in like knowing people, it's a very small industry, and everybody knows everybody really.
And there are some great people there, but we're going to focus on helping people do content creation. So I guess the first thing is this. How much of a difference is there in the work required to create a Twitch stream of gameplay or to actually record videos to post on YouTube? Is there a lot of difference in not just hardware, but the way you approach it and attack it?
Yes, there is. And really it all comes down to expectations, right? And I'm not talking about your expectation, I'm talking about the viewer's expectation. If you're watching something on Twitch, people don't expect it to be flawless. When now on YouTube, they kind of do. So you're really looking at scripting stuff on YouTube, which I'm looking at editing, which takes time. Where Twitch, if you've got that personality which can rock it, you can basically just turn on your computer, press play, and if you're likable, I'm not saying if you're a nice person or anything, but if you're actually likable and you've got a magnetic personality, you're going to do well regardless. So you don't really need to put as much time and effort into a Twitch stream as you do a YouTube. I'm not saying that everybody doesn't, because a lot of people put a lot of effort into their Twitch streams, but Twitch is definitely easier to get going with, I think.
Well, let's start on the Twitch side then.
Okay.
How much importance is the game you choose, or is it all about the personality of the person doing it?
Unfortunately, I mean this truly, it's 99% the game you choose.
That's sad.
Because it's really sad, because what you got to realize is it's almost impossible to be found. Discoverability on Twitch has got better recently because they no longer list the channels which are streaming a game based on viewer count, but up until very recently, that's what they've always done. So if you was at the bottom and you were just starting out, no one was going to find your stream. The only way you'd find your stream is if people around your size would do hosts and raids. But up until recently, getting big on Twitch or getting popular on Twitch was all about working outside of Twitch. So you would need a YouTube, you would need Twitter, you would need Instagram, you'd need all these social medias, like pushing people to your Twitch channel to get your viewer numbers up in the hopes that you'd actually get some discoverability through Twitch itself. But it's really, really difficult to build an audience on Twitch.
Well, now you're talking about the discoverability, but shift that for a second. What about the sustainability? In your experience, say you got a Twitch streamer who's managed to get a couple of hundred followers, they're doing okay. Is the game what's going to sustain them? Or is the personality? I mean, this is where it gets weird to me when I watch Twitch. I see streams that are, well, I hate to be this blunt, they're crap.
Yeah.
But they've got 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people viewing them. And then I see other streams, really well done, really thoughtful conversation, nobody watches.
Yeah, but a lot of that is because you get grandfathered in, right? So what you do is you find your original game that you're going to play, you'll hammer that game, you'll get a bit of an audience from that, and then once you've got a bit of a core audience, you can switch over to a different game, and because they're still going to be watching you, you're going to be higher up in the rankings for that game as well. You keep on doing this, and eventually you'll have a core audience which is going to be around watching you no matter what, providing that you keep up with the content. And once you've reached that point, you're basically invincible. You can play whatever you want when you want, and you'll do okay. There's very few variety streamers on Twitch, very few, which are as popular as anybody who's doing a single game. There's very few.
Is there a type of game? I mean, does it have to be a first-person shooter or a League of Legends type game? Does it have to be something like that? Or can you do this? Do you think you can do this using something like Wastelands that's a slower turn-based game?
It really depends. The biggest issue with content creation on both YouTube and Twitch is that you've got to think about how much content you can squeeze out of a single game, right? It's about how much content you can squeeze out of a single game. So if you can actually play a game like Wastelands 3, which I know lasts for 100+ hours if you want it to, and then you can do secondary runs, you can start doing speed running, but you normally always have to transition. If you want to focus on that one game, then as long as there's content to be squeezed from it, and there's people that want to see that content. But if you're playing the latest AAA game that comes out tomorrow, let's say, if it's only a 6-hour-long campaign story-wise, you're going to struggle, right? You might get the initial boost when people look for it, but then after that, it's done. Where on the other side of the spectrum, you've got games like The Witcher 3, which right now on Twitch will still have a few thousand people watching it, and there'll be a few channels on there with a couple of hundred views. So it really depends on if the game's got the content. If the game's got the content, you can basically play that game, providing that there's enough people enough interested in that game.
Okay, so we've got an idea here, and I'm sorry if you had something more to add. Go ahead.
No, I was simply just going to say that it's a really hard thing to answer because there's obviously lots of great games out there which you can play for hundreds and thousands of hours, which just don't have an audience anymore. Like Roller Coaster Tycoon, for instance, you can play that game forever.
Awesome game, or
it's
Spore,
an amazing game,
or Spore.
Yeah.
So
I have never actually played Spore, but yeah.
You got to go buy Spore. Spore is just stupidly fun. It's not even that it's a great game; it's just stupid and it's fun. and I guess that's what makes a great game, though. So we've got an idea that we're gonna start a Twitch stream. We want to be able to get some content out there. So we picked our game. We're getting ready to do this. The next place I see people screw up before we get to the hardware choice is the settings choice. Everybody seems to think you have to stream at 1080p, 60 frames per second to be able to get an audience. Is that even close to true?
No, it's nowhere close to true. And I used to believe it was. I used to believe that was the case for a long time. But the reality is, quality means almost nothing. It's one of those things that's just been hyped up so much by everybody who's trying to grow a Twitch channel. It's like, I need better quality. That's what's going to make me big. I need better overlays for my camera. That's going to make me better. And honestly, it's all irrelevant. If you're really good and you're really popular, you could stream at 720p 30 FPS on a really low bit rate, providing that your mic's okay. I think your mic is the number one thing that you need for Twitch. Then people will watch you.
Yeah, that's
if anything, you're not going to get viewers at 1080-60 because until you're a partner or until you've got a decent enough views, you're not even going to get the quality options, which means people can't watch you on mobile with low quality connections, or metered connections aren't going to be able to watch you either. So there's a lot of reasons why going for the high quality is not the right idea.
And this is, I think, something important for anybody that's listening to this podcast to understand. If you're just starting out, don't get wrapped up in trying to have the best video quality on Twitch. 720p 30 frames per second is actually, it looks pretty good most of the time. And
yeah, it can be fine.
It really helps the people trying to watch on cell phones because it's less data. And I love the point you made. The microphone is, for that first attempt, that early access, probably the most overlooked and important tool for you to have.
If you've got a budget of a couple of £100 to set up a stream and your choice is between a webcam and a microphone, it's the microphone. 100% of the time.
You can actually get by without the webcam. I've seen a lot of popular streams that don't have webcams in them.
It's harder, though. It is harder. But yes, you can. But no one gets through with a bad mic. Nobody gets through with a bad mic.
So as we go into hardware, a good microphone, from a gameplay perspective, with so many good low-cost multi-core CPUs, is the early need seem to push toward a dual system for the transcoding and the transmission of the actual stream. Is that really necessary?
No, I used a dual system when I did it, and there's lots of great options now. I mean, NDI for dual systems is perfect, which has really lowered the requirement of getting a decent, expensive system, right?
Right.
So what you can do nowadays is you can buy a 30 or 40 pound Ryzen CPU, stick it into a box. It's got the built-in graphics, and then use something like NDI, which is basically it sends the image from one version of OBS through your network to the other computer, so you don't need a capture card.
Nice.
And then you can get it to transcode on that really cheaply. So you list them for 150 quid, where you've got full control. It's a full working PC, and you can stream out in higher quality than what you're going to be able to get from most GPUs.
Now that raises an interesting question. One of the concerns I've always had with streaming, well, not a concern, one of the things I didn't like about streaming, I like to game at 1440. But the problem you've got is most capture cards, now they're out there now, but they're expensive. They can't capture 1440. They can only capture 1080. So you end up having to pull back your gameplay so that the capture card can do it. Does NDI allow you to send over at 1440?
NDI will send over whatever your OBS is configured to. So if you set your OBS to 720p, it will send over on the network at 720p. Pretty close to lossless. People call it lossless. It's not. It's not as high quality as what you get with a capture card, but it's that the quality difference is not going to be visible on a stream, right? I mean, a stream generally, even if you do your 1080p 60, it's pretty low quality in comparison to watching the gameplay live. So it doesn't make a difference, but you can NDI or just send it from one computer to the other, nice and easy.
Okay, so I know some people are going to ask for this. I'll mention it to you, or if one of the people listening live want to do this. Up in the listeners' questions section, if somebody wants to, well, you're going to have to PM me because we don't have the ability to post links up there. Send me a link for NDI, and I will make sure it gets posted here. And that way people can go check this out. Now, does this software cost anything, or is it free?
It's completely free.
That's amazing.
NDI has basically made capture cards for streaming obsolete. There's very few exceptions where, like, you do have to have OBS open on your computer, but it doesn't have to be encoding, right? So basically, the way I used to have it set up is I'd have my gaming computer with a version of OBS open on it, with just game capture on. That's all. It's not encoding or anything. And what it would do is almost losslessly, turn that image in the viewport into an NDI stream, and send it through to the other computer where I would have a version of OBS open where I'd do all the overlays and everything like that. The latency is very low, so it's basically like a capture card. I'd have my webcam plugged into my streaming computer, and I basically got to do the capture card thing, and it got one big advantage over capture cards, by the way. There's no screen tearing.
Nice.
Capture cards suffer from screen tearing because that's just the nature of the beast. You can't have a variable frame rate and use a capture card without screen tearing. But NDI, you don't have to worry about that. So
that's amazing. I don't do much streaming, so I didn't know about this, and maybe a lot of people listening didn't know. You see, this is what you get when you listen here. We're going to find out some cool things. All right, so let's kick off Twitch for a minute. YouTube, even though it offers a live service for streaming, tends to be a very different beast. It's more about the recorded video, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's YouTube's split into two different directions recently. And I think this is a massive shame, to be honest. But you've got some really amazing high-end content now. Some really good edited. Basically, you could put it onto TV and people would think it belongs there. And then also, it's gone really quick, really scrappy content as well is on YouTube. And the middle kind of, the original YouTuber from like 2013 to 2016, that's kind of gone now, the general YouTube shows. It's all either super really well produced stuff or super scrappy. We're just doing it for the search results stuff on YouTube now.
So in YouTube, we're going to have the mic is obviously still important because sound is a big deal in what we're doing with this.
It's number one.
for YouTube, the camera now becomes important. Can a webcam be enough, or do you really need to invest in a proper camera for this?
You mean if you want to do like a let's put your face on the
Yeah.
Webcams, they're not bad now. Like the Logitech C920 released, 10, 15 years ago now, and that's still more than enough for the vast majority of people. But with Elgato releasing the cam links and stuff like that, you can normally just get like a cheap £40 old GoPro off eBay.
Okay.
And you could use that, which has got a nice wide angle lens. So it works perfectly. Cameras are scary. They're really scary because the price climbs exponentially for very little quality difference. Like cameras have got so good now since smartphones have been a thing that it would be cheaper to use your phone, right? To literally just use your phone camera or use an old GoPro from eBay. But if you wanted to, I know people which have spent $500, $600, $1,000 on a camera setup, and the quality is better, but it's minutely better. It's not worlds apart. Again, because the quality on YouTube, as good as it is, and it is very good, it's not Blu-ray. You know what I mean? It's limited in bitrate.
Well, I found I do a Facebook video twice a week that's just for my friends in a couple of small groups musing about 40 plus years of media and computer gaming. And I actually found, as silly as it sounds, that my phone's camera does better video than a C920 by a really ridiculous margin.
Oh yeah, definitely, without a doubt.
Well, but the frustration was the mic sucks. And so I actually found, I didn't realize till a couple of weeks ago this was out there. Again, this isn't something I normally focus on, but I've started shifting for stuff I'm doing. There's actually an app you can get for Android and for Apple that will allow you to use your phone as a webcam.
Yeah.
And you just plug it in by USB and it streams just like a regular webcam. You get the high quality output. I have yet to find out what happens if you get a call during it. So there's a concern there.
Yeah, there's a concern, but a lot of people have got an old handset lying around, right? And you can actually pick up phones fairly cheaply nowadays.
Use old ones, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, they hold up quite well. And beyond the app, plug it in via USB, which is obviously a big advantage. You can actually get NDI on your phone and do exactly what I was talking about with that, and just literally have NDI stream, another NDI source stream directly. Well, and use it. There's many different ways.
NDI can be the stream source from your phone.
Yeah, anything that can encode
awesome.
an NDI. Yeah,
I would think that would have a hard time on the phone, though. I would imagine that's a battery killer.
It's almost lossless, so it actually uses very little CPU power. That's why it's so good. It basically, you could run it on a single core at 1 gigahertz and it is still run flawlessly. It's almost lossless. So it uses up a lot of network bandwidth in your house. Like, for instance, you wouldn't want to do this on a 100 meg connection. You want a gigabit connection, at least, to use NDI, which most people have got now. Most people are getting 10 gigabit, so it's not an issue.
Or 2.5. I don't know where that came from, but okay.
Yeah. But, yeah, like one of the advantages of NDI is if let's say you owned an internet cafe and you had a computer that you wanted to stream from, but you wanted to be able to watch every other computer in that office, like 20 computers, you could put NDI on all of them and you could have them all stream into that one computer at the same time, like with no cable.
Okay,
like just using what's set up.
This is like a unicorn magic thing, right?
It is. It honestly is. It really is, and I think it's one of the least understood things at the moment, NDI.
I said, guys, I'll make sure we get this posted in a few different places on the Discord for how you can go find this, because this sounds like magic. This is like back in the day when you were telling people that you could take all the photo albums in your home.
Put them onto it.
and you could put them like on a little CD. and you put thousands of pictures on the CD, and people would look at you and go, "Are you a wizard? Do we need to burn you at the stake?"
Yeah.
So even flash drives were considered magic for a long time. And look at, you can get a flash drive that is like 2 millimeters past the end of the USB connector, and that's it. But it's 32 gig.
32 gigs? What are you talking about these days? I think Corsair just released a 2 terabyte, didn't it? A 2 terabyte flash drive.
There are quite a few of the bigger ones. Yeah, I don't tend to mess with those. But
I don't use them anymore.
I always keep. I've got about 20 flash drives always sitting around, and when I'll go to Best Buy and I'll get ready to leave Best Buy and I'll grab a 32 gig or a 64 gig or even a 128 gig flash drive and I'll stick it in the cart for $3. Yeah. And so I've always got a ton of these laying around, and you'll be amazed how people probably won't be amazed that are listening. Really useful things to have. Okay, so we've talked about some good entry-level information to give people a good start. One other thing, if with YouTube you're recording video, does this change the hardware speccing on the computer to how you want to do this? Now, obviously, if you're using NDI, it doesn't, because you just discussed that. With NDI, it's irrelevant. You can run your 1080p gaming rig or your 1440 gaming rig and use NDI to kick over to a low-end rig on the side, and you've got no hurt to your performance. If you're single running the performance and you want to record, does that change compared to live streaming for what you need on that PC?
Recording is generally easier than live streaming, as in you've got amazing programs such as AMD Relive or Relive. I'm still not 100% what it's called. Relive or Relive?
I think it's supposed to be Relive, is what they're claiming.
Okay. So Relive, and then obviously on NVIDIA's side, you've also got Shadowplay. So these two will work fine. They're really good. They're really good for what they do. They're really low performance overhead, and the quality for recording is pretty spot on. So recording, you don't really need to worry too much about the hardware, providing that you've got a modern GPU and a decent system. You're okay. But obviously, it's the editing process for YouTube where you do probably want a bit more RAM. You're going to need some more storage because you're storing all this, where when you're streaming, obviously, you're just sending it out. So I do think ironically, you need a slightly better setup for YouTube, even though people will probably tell you it's the other way around. Streaming, you can get away with a lot nowadays, but for YouTube, storage is expensive. RAM, you want for while you're video editing. You want a decent CPU so that you can encode the videos and get them up on time. And then also, because you're going to be doing higher bitrate, your internet connection needs to be a little bit better than it is Twitch as well, because when you're uploading 20 gig files to YouTube,
you start it before you go to bed and hope it's done by the coffee time in the morning.
So I think there's a bit of a steeper curve to entry on YouTube. It never used to be the case. Twitch used to be like a nightmare to get yourself going on, but OBS, respect to the guys that made OBS, because that is an amazing program. And then you've got the graphics card manufacturers, which are not manufacturers, but NVIDIA and AMD, which have got enough software now to be able to record and stream as well. So it's a lot easier.
What about editing that video? What's a good low cost or free program to do this? Because not all of us can afford the high-end software.
Well, the best option, in my honest opinion, is still going to be Adobe Premiere, which is obviously not the cheapest option. If you're a student, you can get it for you can get the whole Adobe package, I think, for $19 a month, which is amazing quality.
I'm going back to school.
Yeah. So that's your Photoshop, your Audition, After Effects, and Premiere, which is a great deal. If you're not a student, then you're probably going to be paying $50 to $60 a month, which obviously starts to add up. So that's probably out of a lot of people's price bracket, really, for an extra, especially actually doing the videos at the point. So it would have to be DaVinci Resolve, I'd say, is probably the best free video editor.
Okay, one more question, and we're going to start diving into the questions and just see where we go.
Yep.
So you've decided you're going to stream, you're going to do YouTube, you're going to do one of these two. I can't believe how many people I talk to that think they are going to become the next big thing. And I'm not saying they may not. How do you get people to understand? Well, you could probably explain this from your own efforts. How difficult is it to be able to move from somebody that's making some streams now and then and having some fun to somebody that's making money doing this?
Okay, this is it's a wormhole. This one, it's not even a rabbit hole. It's a wormhole. It's going to suck every little bit of energy out of me to try and spread this out. So let me try. I'm trying to figure out how to describe this. First off, I'm going to start off by saying that the perceptions of size on YouTube and Twitch and being popular is by no means linked to financial gain. As in, you don't need a big channel to make a lot of money. And there's a lot of big channels out there that make very little money. So if you want to be popular, that's really difficult. That's really difficult. A lot of it's going to come down to luck, and some of it's going to come down to you just being one of those people that are extremely likable and people want to come and watch you. And if you're one of those people, wow, you've done it. You've made it. Just press play and you'll make it eventually. But if you want to do this for a living, then it's really about focusing on where you can make your money rather than growing a channel. So I don't know where I want to go from this, but I just know that there's people out there. I know people personally, which, for instance, on YouTube, get a couple of thousand views per video, which doesn't sound like a lot, but are making 10K a month from Patreon and donate.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is streaming is great, but if you think you're going to just stream and that's all you have to do to make money, you've deluded yourself. There's a lot more work involved.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a job. It's a job, right? I mean, I think this is the best way to see it. Like, if you want to be popular, that's not a job, right? You can keep on doing it. You might get lucky. You might get popular. And obviously, as you get more and more popular, you're going to start being able to make money just by default, just by people subscribing, just by ad revenue. You're going to start making a bit of pennies. So that's nice and easy, right? It might not be a lot, but if you actually want to take this seriously and do it as a business, then obviously you need to diversify your revenue streams. You need to look at doing a bit of freelance work here and there. You got to go out reaching for sponsorships. You need to promote all your extra money making avenues, and then you also need to make sure that your content is content which is worth making financially. So it gets quite complicated. If you want to be popular, if you want to be popular, just stream. If you want to make money, it's busy.
There you go.
It's busy work.
All right. Well, we're going to dive into some questions here. We've got a few already. If you have questions for Pixel about anything, by the way, we will discuss anything. We're easy. So we're going to start with Competisa. I'm mispronouncing that badly. What would you wish that Twitch could do to make its platform better or more attractive for streamers?
Discoverability. That's the number one with Twitch. It's got better recently, but until recently, I mentioned this earlier, the sections where you go to, like, if you wanted to watch a, let's say, Fortnite stream, you click on Fortnite and it'd all be listed by purely viewer numbers, which means the more viewers that you had, the more likely you were to get viewers. So it basically made it almost impossible for smaller streamers to really do anything. Discoverability is something that Twitch really needs to work on. And
would using a different platform like Mixer help with that discoverability?
Yes and no. As in, it does do, obviously. I think if you've got a small audience, you probably find it easier to grow a small audience on a platform like Mixer. But then because you're limited so much by the amount of people that are using Mixer to view content, like, your peak's also much smaller as well. So
Do you think that I'm going to stay with this for just one more question for myself? Do you think when Mixer bought streamers to come on there that really helped them? Because I'm looking at their numbers, they didn't spike like everybody thought they would.
It's an awkward question, really, isn't it? Because did it help them? No, it didn't help them. Like that's it, you can see that it's a fact. It didn't help them. But what is going to help them is the question, right? As in, like, they've got to try something, and I think that's exactly what that is. There's nothing which is working for any of these streaming platforms at the moment, and it's simply because Twitch has been grandfathered in now at this point. Like, YouTube's going to do okay because obviously the way there's enough people using YouTube already to actually, so you can stream on YouTube and do pretty popularly. But on Twitch, you just go to Twitch. if I ask you, are you going to watch a streamer tonight? Like, the first question is, what's his Twitch? You don't ask what's his
You're
Mixer.
right. It's like Coke. It's like saying you're going to have a soda. People sometimes just say, I'm going to have a Coke.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
You'll say, I'm going to grab a Coke if you're going to grab a Pepsi, right? It's the same thing.
Oh, please, no. No. If you're grabbing a Pepsi, leave this server. I don't want to talk to you. No. That's terrible. I go into, I've been a Coke drinker all my life, and I go into restaurants, and they'll ask you, what would you like for your drink? And I'll say a Diet Coke. And they'll look at me and they'll say, will a Diet Pepsi get so mad when I do this? I look back at them and say, I don't know. Will Monopoly money pay for this? So, all right, let's move to the next question. Karin's Kings. Now, I'm not going to read the whole question. Basically, what he does is he does some streaming, but the stream is laggy. It doesn't lag in all games. It lagged in COD, but it doesn't lag, for example, in Fortnite. And he's wondering if it's his specs. Now, the specs he's listed are Ryzen 5 3500, 8 gigabytes of memory, and GTX 660. And I'm presuming he's streaming at 1080p. That should, from what you and I've discussed, actually do okay streaming.
That would do fine streaming. So it really depends. If the word lag is one of the worst words to use.
He said, by the way, he's streaming at 720p.
Yeah. But the word lag is the issue. Is that lagging as in, like, the people watching it are seeing lag? Is that lagging for you while you're playing? Because if it's lagging for the actual stream, the people watching the stream, it could be your internet connection, which is actually the bottleneck there causing that lag. If it's lagging for you while you're playing, are you on your... Yeah, lags for the audience, game works fine. It's... Are you using your CPU or your graphics card as the encoder?
Well, I would also say look at the bit rate. One of the things I've noticed when I talk to people about streaming is I finally convinced them 720p 60 frames per second is fine, but they've got this ridiculous bit rate set. And there's I think it's 25 or 2700. After that with 720p, you can't notice it.
It definitely gets harder, yeah.
So yeah, he's got a bit rate set to 5,000. I'd drop that bit rate. I seriously,
personally, I'd go to 3,500 personally. That's where I would go.
Yeah, I was going to say 3,000, but that might help quite a bit.
But if you're saying probably GPU, it probably isn't. I think most of the encoders default to CPU.
That's true.
So you've got a 1660. I'd probably just search on YouTube for OBS NVENC tutorial, or I'll type it in here. OBS NVENC. So search for that on YouTube, and they'll get you probably good enough encoding settings for your graphics card, and you should get rid of that lag completely. If it's your audience that you're lagging only, then lower the bit rate, and it should be fine.
There you go. All right. Visa is asking about, I'm guessing that ATEM Mini is a camera based on the rest of his question. He's asking about the newer features from Sony and Canon, where many of them are, well, actually, that's not that new of a feature. They've had the ability to plug into USB and function as a webcam for a while now, haven't they?
The A10 Mini is a little control deck, I believe.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I've never. Again, this is why we've got you here. You know.
I actually don't know much about it. I've definitely seen about it, but they're expensive, is what I think. Let's have a quick look. So just making sure I'm right. Oh wow, this actually looks really cool. I actually don't know anything about it, to be honest. I don't know how it works, but that's definitely something I'm gonna have to look into.
There you go. There you go. You see, you're giving us cool information to look up now. This is cool. I like this.
Okay, so I've been looking into getting the Pro lately. Might be a good choice for professional live streaming. So, do you guys think the new features on cameras that Sony can with it?
Here, while you're looking at that, I'm gonna look at this other one real quick from Kings. Kings is asking about audio that's coming in that isn't from his mic. Now, I'm presuming you've already tested. You're sure it's not from the mic. The odds are you've got something else in the background running, some piece of software in the background running. Common mistakes I've seen for doing this is people will use their sound source as the sound mixer and not the specific source. And so when you use the mixer, that's picking up everything that PC is doing for sound, everything. So it could very well be you've just got a program in the background that's doing something. That's the noise it's picking up. Both of them suggested DaVinci Resolve. It's free for editing.
Yeah, it's a really good program. Do you guys think the features on the new cameras that Sony and Canon are coming out with, letting you use them as a webcam with just USB, will change anything? Yes and no. Simple answer is no, and that is simply because programs like the Cam Link already exist. Sure, it ends up cheaper to just buy a camera without a Cam Link, but because the Cam Link works with so many old cameras which still work with decent lenses, it's actually cheaper to buy a second-hand camera and a Cam Link than it would be to buy one of these new cameras from Sony or Canon.
There you go. Let's see. Captain is asking, okay, so you're wanting to, and we kind of talked about this, you're wanting to stream live, but you're also wanting to make video. So, as we discussed, if you're streaming live, microphone, first most important thing. If you're going to make videos to produce and put on YouTube, you need a good quality camera, or at least a decent quality camera. But then you also need RAM, and you need a good CPU for recording and editing.
I'd go probably around, if I was to put up a really basic spec for him, I'd say Ryzen 3600 with 16 gigs of RAM, a couple of terabytes worth of SSDs, and then a 5700 RX 5700 as a GPU. Well, be a really good system for streaming.
Obviously, an Sapphire Nitro is
the Sapphire Nitro RX 5700 XT graphics.
Just a
special edition.
Special edition. There you go. Now, I'm going to disagree with you on a portion here.
Okay.
I think the Ryzen 5 is an amazing chip for a basic gamer. In fact, if you're doing nothing but gaming, if you're not even streaming, just gaming, I don't think there's a better chip on the market right now to have for a gamer. I think bang for the buck. It's just incredible. However, in my opinion, when you start adding that you want to do streaming in real time, you're wanting to do the recording in real time, you're wanting to do the editing, you're wanting to do more, I think that it really begins to push into that Ryzen 7. Now, I don't think you need a super like a 3900, but I think the 3700X becomes a better option at that point. It gives a little more versatility, it would seem to me.
You're right. You're not wrong. But it's why I also said the RX 5700 instead of the 5700 XT. I think if you did the jump on the CPU and you did the jump on the GPU and you went up to 32 gigabytes of RAM, you've just doubled the price of your system.
That's true.
So that's where I was coming in. Like, if you just wanted to do it on a decent, like, you don't even need to go for the 5700. I'll go for the 5600 XT.
I don't disagree. If you're just wanting to goof, if you're wanting to, as you say, you just want to plug it in and stream something.
Yeah.
Then I don't disagree. I think a 3600 is fine. But to me, the minute you add that editing, the minute you add the YouTube posting, you've pushed beyond the I'm just going to stream my gameplay. Da-da, here I am. You've moved beyond that. And to me, it feels like that extra investment might be worth the money.
Kind of, but I'll tell you something. You might find this interesting, actually. My world changed recently when it came to content creation, because we was doing a video for the Sapphire, the Nook with a gearbox.
Okay, yeah.
So we was doing that, and we was trying to see what it could do.
Now, for you guys that don't know, your box is a external GPU enclosure.
Yeah. So he's looking at the advantages. So you can take a Nook, which is a really low-end system, plug it into this box, and be able to play Fortnite at 120 FPS nice and easy. It works really well. But there's obviously some disadvantages. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but that's the cost of having an extra power supply and building a case around one of our graphics cards. But I was doing a video on this, and what we're saying is, like, could we use the Nook all of a sudden, this really low-powered CPU, in this tiny little box and actually edit videos? And the answer was yes. Like, the actual editing process now is actually really good, because a lot of it is more based on SSDs and memory, right? So you've got SSDs and memory, you can move stuff around on that timeline nice and easily. It doesn't take a lot of processing power. So a lot of the processing power was all down to the encoding of the final video, which would obviously take a day or two on this really low-powered Nook. So what we did is we looked into plugins for this, was for Adobe Premiere in particular, and we found something called Vocoder, and it's a plugin which allows you to use hardware encoders based on either NVIDIA or AMD GPUs to encode into H.265 using the hardware encoders on the chip. And now I am able to, the videos that go up on the YouTube channel for Sapphire, you can check the quality. They're up there. That they're
outstanding. They look great.
So let's say if I encode a 60-minute 1440p video at 500 at 50 megasecond, which is what I actually encode to, on my CPU, which my CPU is actually, it's a bit old now, but it's the i7 7900X, the 10 core. It's overclocked to 4.5 gigahertz, 20 thread. So it's still up there. That'd take me 4, 5, 6 hours. But using Vocoder and encoding onto RX 5600 XT, that in double real time.
Nice.
So those videos, like, encoding is not a thing anymore. If you can afford Adobe, you don't need a CPU to encode anymore.
Well, you've got you've just basically in this little show flipped the entire content creation industry on its head, because we've been told for years you need a reasonably powerful second computer to be able to do all the capture. You've got to buy a capture card. You want a powerful machine to do the encoding in real time, blah, blah, blah. And what you've just told everybody is, oh, screw the capture card. There's a free piece of software that does this, and you can run this on your junk PC. By the way, your potato, you put a 5600 XT in it, and you switch the encoding a little bit, and it's as fast as the other stuff.
Well, what's worse than that, the reason why I'm saying the 5600 is because that's what I've currently got in the Ryzen system, in the gaming system now. But the reality is, the RX 570 has got this same chip. The RX 560 has got this same hardware encoding chip on it.
Nice.
So you could literally stick a $60, $70 GPU from eBay into a system and literally encode at faster than real time at 1440p or 4K.
Nice.
Fully edited videos. So yeah, the time of needing decent, like, top-end CPUs for video editing, they're kind of gone. The thing is, this is going to be quite controversial now, and we love AMD 100%. We love everything computer. We love technology, right?
Exactly.
It's really difficult to sell a CPU. It's not easy because CPUs technically, as much of the specs have improved, they've not improved for gaming that much in the last decade.
Well, yeah, because people get focused. We as hardware enthusiasts, we sometimes forget the only benchmark that matters is the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've talked about this. I've got a system in the house with a 2600, a 3600, a 3800X, and a 1700. And with essentially the same gaming card for me to tell a difference in gameplay experience. Now, benchmarks, I can tell a difference, but actual gameplay, it doesn't exist. So it becomes difficult sometimes to tell people. There's no reason in many cases to upgrade the CPU.
No, the only reason why you upgrade your CPU nowadays, this was true up until recently. I think nowadays you want a minimum of a 4 to 6 core CPU. Until recently, you didn't need that. But if you had a quad core from 2012, which would have been like the Sandy Bridge kind of days, right? So this would have been like the i7 2500K. The only reason why you'd really want to upgrade that today is for memory. So you want to go up to DDR3, DDR4.
Right.
The PCIe bandwidth. But the actual the CPU itself, I'll tell you an example rather than actually going through all the things. I bought a gaming system in 2013, which was a beast. It cost £4,500, so about $7,000 at the time. It was one of the best computers you could get. It had an i7 3930K, so that was like 6 cores at the time where everything was just quad core. It had 64 gigs of RAM, terabytes of SSD space when SSDs were really expensive, and I played through Crysis on it. It had 2 GTX 680 graphics cards in it in SLI, and I played through Crysis, the original Crysis, at 1080p. And it was amazing, right? It was amazing. It was very expensive.
That doesn't mean anything anymore. Everybody's like, can it play Crysis? Yes, it can.
Yeah. But this is what I'm getting onto, right? This is what I'm about to get onto, right? So I played through it in 2013, 7 years ago.
Right.
This year, when we released the 5700 XT, the Financial 5700 XT, I decided to do the same again, except this time, the gaming system that we'll be honest, we're purely about maximizing the performance, as in like frames per second. Not the best experience, not the best offer, but we've got in the gaming system we do all our recordings on is the i7 9700K overclocked at 5.1 gigahertz. So this is basically the fastest physical gaming CPU that you can actually use right this second today. So we've gone for that. We've got 32 gigs, 16 gigs of RAM overclocked to 3,500 megahertz. Basically as fast as what you're ever going to want to go. Everything's installed on M2 SSDs. And we had the RX 5700 XT, which is a lot faster than what that old GTX 680 is.
Right.
The frame rate was exactly the same. Because CPUs have not improved since 2012 when it comes to gaming performance. If you can actually clock your CPU to the same frequencies as what you could do in 2012, gameplay performance on DirectX 9 games will be almost identical. So we actually had points where we was dropping down below 60 FPS. Not many, but there was points where we dropped down below 60 FPS on an RX 5700 XT at 1440p, while the GPU usage was less than 20% because the CPU was just maxed out on those 2 cores. It's crazy.
You're done. Yeah. What's the point? Kings made 2 comments I'm going to address real quick because we're about to run out of time. King's commented about needing a capture card because his internet's just 20 meg.
No.
The internet's irrelevant. That's what he was explaining to us. There is a piece of software, if your network is running...
Your internal network, yeah.
And most networks are running at a gigabit.
Yeah.
100 megabit, would it still work okay, you think? Or is that going to be a little slow?
100 meg, I wouldn't risk it. No, I'd risk it. I mean, NDI is a free program, right? So I'd definitely try it before I spent that on a capture card. But I probably wouldn't expect 100 meg to work that great on anything above 720.
The other thing is both of these computers need to be wired into your network. Don't use a Wi-Fi.
That's correct.
A good Wi-Fi can. Well, I've got Wi-Fi in my house. I got a demo rig that sits out in our living room, and it runs about 500 megabit down on the Wi-Fi, which is incredible on Wi-Fi. But it's not consistent. Too many things can interfere with Wi-Fi. So the other question he had is he's got a gigabyte motherboard. Well, Sapphire doesn't make one, so okay. And he enabled fast boot. First mistake, never enable fast boot. And now he can't get back in the BIOS. How do you fix that? Two quick, easy suggestions. First, Gigabyte has actually a software program that you can run from Windows to tell it to reboot into the UEFI. You can download that and use that. The second option is to spam the hell out of the delete key as you restart. Just go crazy on it. The third option is a little more aggressive, but it solves it. Reset the BIOS. Either do the jumper, pull the BIOS battery. Just reset the BIOS, and then you're back to default, and that's turned off. You'll have to go in and make your other settings again, but that solves the problem. And then you know now not to turn on fast boot.
I've never actually used fast boot. I actually don't know what it does. Never used it.
Basically, it bypasses a lot of the early BIOS stuff and goes straight to the Windows. Right.
Okay.
He tried spam and it didn't work.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, but download that app. They actually have a UEFI app. I can't believe we spent the entire hour on the single topic. Usually, well, the other shows we've done, we do about 30 minutes on the topic, and then we kind of branch out into everything. And you and I had about an hour and a half discussion the other day about everything in gaming.
I'm a bit of a chatterbox.
So am I. We're gonna bring you back on, and we're gonna pick a new topic.
Or we could even just focus down onto one of these topics even closer. Because I kind of feel like we quickly glossed over. I don't feel like I actually explained the bad, to be honest.
Well, you gave a lot of information that I think is going to be really helpful. I mean, I learned a lot in the first 10 minutes. I learned a lot. I think it's a lot of useful information. The key we've got to focus on is, and this is something we want to focus on with this podcast, this is not for the hardcore enthusiast. Now, I'm not saying I don't want you to come in and enjoy it and have fun with it, but there is 6 billion resources for the hardcore enthusiast. And for the computer gamer, for the guy that wants to plug it in and play his games and just enjoy them, there's nothing. There's very few good resources out there. And it was the same thing with the streaming. You gave some great information. You've explained to people as a professional that everything they're being told by many of the pundits is for people trying to be professional streamers. And you gave them some great tips for how to just go out and have some fun with it. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think anybody can be a YouTuber and anyone can be a Twitch streamer, but it's not as simple as just turning it on and going. That's definitely step one. You need to be able to do that. Otherwise, you might as well just stop right now. But making the content and then promoting yourself carefully, well, just make stuff that people want to watch, and that's really the trick to getting viewership.
Yep,
it's that simple.
That's what it's all about.
It's really difficult for us on the SapphireTech YouTube channel. It's difficult because we're corporate, but
I like the stuff you've done. I like the gameplay videos. I think they're a lot of fun, and
we're actually working on a couple of new things at the moment, which are quite interesting. So we're actually going to be going over towards a couple of series, which one of them is going to be This Week I Played. So that we should have the first episode of that up soon.
Very cool. Very cool. What's the games you're looking forward to that are coming out?
To
make a video about. I should add that.
Okay. the games that I want to make a video about that are coming out, there's actually not that much at the moment, which has got me. So right now I'm at a point where I'm having to look through each week at games which are releasing to see if there's anything that catches my eye. But games that I'm looking forward to, Outriders, which a lot of people are saying looks awful, but I don't know why. I really am looking forward to Outriders. My favorite game of last year was Remnant from the Ashes, and it kind of looks similar in gameplay. So I'm looking forward to that. Cyberpunk is the obvious answer. Everyone's waiting for Cyberpunk. So, but Cyberpunk's going to be a nightmare. Everyone's going to be really upset with Cyberpunk.
As we end this, you'll get a kick out of the story. So my wife, for our anniversary, decided to buy me Cyberpunk because it was on my Steam wish list, and I've got a good wife. And so she bought me Cyberpunk, and she comes back, and I'm telling her thank you and everything else, and she said, "So tell me when you start playing it so I can come watch it with you." And I'm like, "Well, it's going to be a little while. It's not due out until I think it was September at that time."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, crap. Okay, that's all cool. That's all cool." And then it just got moved back to December. And I said, "This is the best present I've ever got to not use, ever." So, yeah, I'm glad they delayed it. I would prefer them to delay it and do it right. And they're good about that. So I'm excited about that. I think that'll be a lot of fun. All right. Yeah. We're getting ready to head out of here, bud. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, thanks for inviting me on. It was a lot of fun.
For all of you who came out live, thank you for joining us. For all of you that will be listening to this later on YouTube, I hope you enjoy it. Next month, let me see. I'll even give you guys the date. We are currently looking at July 18th will be the next podcast. And I'm still working on a guest for that one. I got to figure out a good guest for that one. So we'll see what we can do.
I might see you next month, guys.
There you go. You might see you next month. Thanks, Pixel. I appreciate it.
No worries. See you later, guys. Thank you very much.
Guys, everybody take it easy, and we're out of here. 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 Here.